Hey, brother.
Hey, Jaymin.
How are you?
How are you, Jaymin? Thanks for joining.
I love seeing this orange shirt, orange flowers, orange book behind you. It's just so bright, and I mean, I've got a little bit of the similar color scheme going on here. So we're in flow, man. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jaymin. Before we get into the conversation, I would love to introduce you to all my viewers.
All right. Hi,
Well, here
everyone.
we have our guest for the day, Jaymin J. Patel. He's a self-expression coach and soul mentor for high achievers. Jaymin has lived in or visited over 50 countries and worked as a consultant to Fortune 500 companies and national governments. He has written 8 books and delivered a TED Talk with 50K plus views and has been invited to speak at Harvard Business School and the London School of Economics. Business owners, corporate leaders, and spiritual teachers typically come to Jamin when they have achieved a certain level of success and are wondering what's next and want to explore their edge and know that they're living their life fully lived, accepting themselves, creating community, taking risks, doing what makes them come alive, and even when doubt and fear are present. Jamin's mission is to help family oriented leaders unlock their business greatest achievement potential by connecting them to their emotions so they can experience the highest levels of freedom and expression and easefully expand into even more abundance in health, wealth, and love. Most importantly, Jamin is a dad of 2 incredible kids and shares a beautiful, conscious relationship with his wife, Eri. He and his family are currently living on the tropical island of Bali, where he hosts private retreats for his clients. Jamin, amazing to have you as our guest today. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
bro.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining.
I'm so excited to be here with you.
Jamin, yes, I remember that. I think there was an interesting, very interesting story behind you traveling to India, to Mumbai to join us at the Ultimate Experience event. But before that, I would actually want to learn more from you about your connection to the being movement. And was there a shift or was there a transition? How did it happen? Or were you in this movement? Uh, well, not externally known as being movement, but somehow connected with what you're learning here and sharing here. I would love to know more about your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think for my own self, the being movement, has been something that's been so important because I think at the end of the day, once I realized that everything shifts when you shift who you're being.
Hmm.
And, for me growing up, I grew up in a, loving household, but also dysfunctional households, right? So my parents did the best that they could, but they didn't have nearly all the books and access and everything that we have today. And so they did their best, but I grew up in a very traditional Indian household in the US. And so there was this layer of I couldn't be me. I had to be the shiny son on the pedestal, achieving everything and knowing everything and being the people pleaser and the showman and all of these things. And so I didn't have a very long time in my life where I got to really be me. And when I started getting a taste of this in my early 20s and eventually went to Burning Man, which is, I think, the ultimate place of being, because it's about radical self expression, radical self responsibility.
Hmm.
I discovered that I could be in this world and be me to the max. And that really whet my appetite and set me on a 12-year journey to connect into this movement of being. And it popped up in its own different ways. Where then eventually, I got connected in with Mr. Steve Hardison, who I think also is kind of the embodiment of a lot of this stuff. And of course, it was one of those moments where we reached out, we were chatting, he added me on Facebook, and then he calls me, and he goes, "Where do you live?" And I said, "Oh, I live in Bali." He goes, "Well, I'm going to be in India." And I said, "No way," because I know this man doesn't travel. right? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to be in India. We're doing the ultimate experience. My dear brother Alok was going to be there as well, former mentor of mine as well. And I said, this sounds great. I get to see Alok, give him a big hug. I get to see you, give you a big hug. He goes, okay, do me a favor, reach out to Ranjan, tell him you're coming and see if he needs any help. And I'll see you in Mumbai. And therefore I said, okay. And as soon as it hit me, I said, this is happening. And so booked the ticket, came out, and just had an amazing, amazing experience of such love and expansion with all of these people when we got together at the Miracle in Mumbai.
What was that? You know, I think I either read it in one of your posts or somewhere, you losing your, you know, the jacket
Oh
or
my gosh.
something. Yes. I'm curious about that story and the experience of you losing all your money and then getting your money back.
Yeah, it was really interesting. So, we were in Mumbai, we had the event. I had another event the day after that I spoke at, and I took a day of relaxation and was just really enjoying my time. And then I wanted to go to the Ajanta Ellora Caves. So I was flying to Aurangabad. So I'm going through the Mumbai airport and I'm thinking, okay, I have like $2,000 in cash and maybe like around 10,000 in INR. And I said, I'm going to put all that right by my heart pocket in my jacket pocket. And this is a jacket that I've owned for, oh my gosh, 9 years. I think I've traveled around the world with this one jacket. So it's like my jacket. And I had some cash in my pocket as usual, my wallet. And I said, okay, I'm going to keep it here so I don't kind of forget it. And as I'm going through the security at Mumbai airport, I don't know, I just get a little kind of flabbergasted and things are backing up. And at the end, I just kind of grab my stuff and I go. And I had plenty of time. So I'm like, I go to the lounge, I'm hanging out. But here's the thing, Ranjan. I wear that jacket because I get very cold in airports and airplanes. But the Mumbai airport was warm. So I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
And then I board the plane, I get on the plane, and the plane is air conditioned and it's super cold. I say, okay, let me go grab my jacket. I reached onto my bag, it's not with me. And
Mm.
I realized, oh my gosh, I must have left this at security. So I press a button. I say, hey, like I've left this jacket at security. I didn't want to say I have all my money in there because this is, all the money I was going to use for the trip. And they say, okay, like let it out. Like here's a phone number you can call and all this stuff. And then something tells me, get off the plane and go now. Because if somebody finds your jacket, I can always book another flight. But if somebody finds my jacket, they're going to pocket this money. And I bring the thing again. I say, hey, I want to get off the plane. They go, the jet bridge is already left. We cannot let you out. Otherwise, it's going to delay everybody here for 45 minutes to an hour. And I didn't know what everyone else's journey was. And I didn't want them to miss a birthday or, anything like that, bedtime with their kids. Like those are things that are
Mm.
to me. And I said, okay, we're just going to believe in the miracle here. And so, I went into my all through my emotions that I was feeling. I felt like I let my wife down. I lost all this money. I felt disappointment. I felt fear. I felt uncertainty. And so I had to be with all these emotions and let them move through me. And then I really connected into gratitude for what I did have, the cash in my pocket, the other elements that I did have all with me. And I came into that. And then I just went into really clear like manifesting. It was like, okay, this is going to come back to me and I believe it. I'm seeing this happen. Then miracles began to occur. So the woman next to me was very sweet. She helped me calm down. She told me how, you do remember it's been 15 years since I've been to India. So when
Mm.
we came last time, I mean, I remember we would bring gifts for our family and we would pack extra wristwatches or different things in the bag to bribe the customs officials because they were all wanted to take the stuff. And so this is the idea that I had of India from my last.
Mm.
So she's like, no, like it's so modernized now. It's all this. She helped call me a driver to take me to my hotel. That driver became, amazing, sweet man. He said, I can take you around to the caves tomorrow. I said, I don't have a lot of cash. He said, I'll find another way. So we made that happen. And then one by one, the manager of the hotel, everything just started happening in a beautiful way. So I finished the trip. I come back to the airport and trying to call this number, can't get through, finally get through. It's 5:36 p.m. And I say, hey, I want to get into the lost and found. And she goes, oh, no, 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 not this number. There's another number you need to call. I'm like, oh my gosh. She goes, but I think they close at 5. And I said, oh man. So that's when I got into it. I said, okay, here we go. This is where being is so important. And I came into the most expansive version of myself. And I said, okay, this is the time for miracles to occur. And I call the number, ring, 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 ring. Finally, somebody picked up, and they identified the jacket, the bag that I had left behind, a couple other items that were I even forgot that were in there. That I was like, oh yeah, all those are there too. And they said, okay, great. And it turns out they're still in the office. I said, great, I'm going to be there. I'm flying there right now. I'll be there in an hour and 20 minutes. He goes, I'm sorry, sir, we close at 6. And then there's just a silence, and I'm holding this energy, and he goes, I'll wait for you. So, so I fly there, he waits for me, I go in, I go and find the office, I get my jacket, and there's no money inside.
Mm.
And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to take out all this money and say, did you not know this was here? And like give them a very hefty portion of it. But the money was gone. And he says to me, did you have money in your jacket? And I said, yeah. He goes, how much? I said, I think about like whatever amount. And then he took out the sheet and he showed me. And Ranjan, they had counted every bill in my
Mm.
pocket, every $100 bill, every $20 bill, every 500 INR bill, everything to the T. And he goes, this amount is waiting for you in the manager's office. And so I went, and the manager said, everything we do in this airport, we do with integrity. Everything was on camera. And he took out all of my bills, and every single bill was returned to me that day. And I had just enough time to then get onto my next flight to go to Goa. And it was amazing. It had such a healing impact on me, on my relationship to India, to see the elevation of being and integrity that so many people are holding within themselves. This entire journey just expanded my awareness that all of humanity is rising into
Yes.
this new story, this new version where there is so much love, there's so much connection, there's so much integrity. And this is the way that most people on this planet are living and moving towards. Everyone is moving towards this. It is a beautiful world we live in. And the evidence has kept popping up all around me during this trip to India, and it was beautiful.
Wow, thank you so much, Jaymin. It's something that everybody should hear this story. People might have had different stories about India and different perceptions before coming to India, but I see that people are still messaging me about the miracles that keep happening in their life even after over a month from the experience and their journeys and everything. I think I think India is a lot different from what it was, and uh, I still believe that India is the land which has given the wisdom of spiritual awakening to the
Yes.
world, and
Oh, yeah.
I think it's time we actually own our own value as Indians
Yeah.
and the Indian land. So I'm very proud of what happened and how it transpired into such such an awakening of the new reality that we are creating together and also experiencing together in this
Yes.
journey. And
Yeah.
Jamin, I would relate this to you losing money and you getting it back. It's not just about money. It's about the experience that you went through and the shift in perception that you had about the entire country, and
Yeah.
maybe about our own judgments about
Yeah.
something that we are going to experience in future. And I would want you to talk about, like, to relate this with our experience of losing our own self and getting back to our own self. Can you tell me, like, how has life been different from uh, uh, from the time that you have consciously been creating the kind of life that you want to live and helping people, business leaders, create a being centered life and to connect more with their emotions? And how is this being movement supported in this?
Yeah, absolutely. I can say for my own journey first, Ranjan, I can't even tell you, like, there are moments when I recall like claiming my truth and having that conversation with my parents, letting them
Mm,
know that like I was going to be on my own journey and what my journey looked like, and just letting them know, hey, this is who I am and this is who my being is, and I want to reveal this to you. And I know you want my being to be that, but that's not me. Like this is why, and like finding that ability to bring all the different people I was being, the person I was being at work and being in relationships and being as a
Mm,
son and being as a friend and all of these things and just putting them into one place. I think many people,
mm,
first and foremost, are good at being different things. We have a
mm,
work, we have a home self, right? We have a family self, we have a friend self. Like some of the things I would do with my friends, I definitely wouldn't do with my family around, right? And many of the things I do with my family around, my friends would think that, wow, that's so weird, right? And so there's this kind of like separation that occurs of like we learn to be different aspects of ourselves in different worlds. And then we need all those worlds to feel fed, to be expressed. But then when we can bring them into one, this incredible harmony happens. And I remember after having like a big conversation with my parents, I would have the same, like I would be the same feeling like I was in the same person and moving through the same world, but everything felt different. I remember this feeling of going to a park after this conversation, and I'm not kidding, Ranjan. It felt like all of the grass was like clapping for me, and all the leaves were waving to me, and it just felt like I felt so connected to the world because I connected all the beings that I was into the one kind of central being that I am. And I got to reclaim and bring all those parts into myself. And when I had that alignment and harmony, literally walking through the park felt like a completely different experience. And I just felt the wind was like carrying me. And I was like, wow, I can be having this lived experience all the time. But when I bifurcate and break out myself into different layers for different reasons of fear, I'm actually holding that fear vibration. And therefore, I'm not meeting life fully. And so when I started experiencing this and going deeper and deeper and deeper into this, in the 12-year journey, I said, my God, if there's any one single thing that's stopping me from being my true authentic self, I'm going to go and address that with the best coach on the planet, and I'm going to find the solution. And I've worked with over 100 coaches, in different capacities, big long-term year things, small week-long workshops, whatever it might be. And I've just gone into the different corners of the world, from plant medicines to sexual shamanism to the mainstream, Tony Robbins, blah, 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 and the whole thing to find how do these pieces fit together. And so now when I do that with my clients, same thing happens, right? They're living as their lives. Like they're not changing dramatically to someone they don't recognize, but the way they experience the world begins to change because they're shifting their being to this more authentic, full version of themselves. And then life is meeting them at that level. And I have people who are just they're holding such a like just like my trip through India. My heart was expanded 4 feet out of my chest. I was just like I was in love with everything. Every rock made me smile. Every airport sign made me smile. My stories were going crazy. I was taking, photos of everything. And it becomes magical. That's where the magic is. People say magic is not real. Well, when you're in fear and you're bifurcated and you're being, yeah, it's probably not. When you bring that alignment in and you can own all the pieces and expose and vulnerably be all of you in all moments, it really does feel magical. It really does feel like miracles like this, getting every single dollar bill, my jacket, all of those things back. That's what happens. I have people texting me moments before the bride is coming down the aisle on their wedding day, thanking me and saying, I didn't even know I could feel what I'm feeling right now. And I'm so
mm.
for you. And that's the kind of work that I just love doing because everyone deserves to feel this. And I think in my own journey, I had such a long number of decades where I was pulled back into trying to be what my parents wanted me to be, that when I finally found that release, I just became unstoppable. And I said, I'm not doing anything else but being the true authentically self that I could be. And that's what I love helping others do as well.
Fantastic. Jamin, for me, it took me over 2 decades of my journey of self-exploration, where in 1997, I started my journey. I renounced my family to become a monk in Sri Ramakrishna Mutt and in Hyderabad.
Wow.
And I went through all kinds of yogic practices, meditation, tantra, and then new age, alternative therapies, pranic healing, Reiki, crystal therapy, and Kriya Yoga and Sudarshan Kriya and all kinds of things. But then again came back to the the new age things and the creative visualizations and Joe Silva's meditations and everything. Uh, but then it took me over 2 decades to actually realize that it's not something that happens from outside to inside. It's something that happens inside, is experienced inside, and then it actually happens from inside. And it's about 3 years ago that I changed my trainings, my workshops, and coaching, and everything goes around authentic self. And unless one is connected with the authentic self, everything on the outside is like a technique or a tip or a strategy, or it's something like you cut paste from somewhere. So I would like to know, Jamin, like how did this happen? Your creation of your being centered, or your falling into alignment with your authentic self.
Hmm.
What exact? How did you do it, and how did you create that for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think, our journeys are similar, and I think it's similar to lots of people because it does take years of these singular tools coming in and us seeing it. But if everything existed in a singular tool, right? If mindfulness, meditation was the way, or yoga was the way, or tantra was the way, or modern manifestation was the way, or anything, Joe Dispenza was the way, it would just be too easy, right?
Mm,
And so I think what happens is, and with most people I work with, they've done all these different things. And then they get to a point where like, I've done all these things, I should know better, but yet I don't feel connected to my world. Like what is the thing?
mm,
And so, in my journey, like I said, I would go to like religious, Christian things, and I'd go to, the complete opposite of things. I've worked with different plant medicines. So I try to go into the extremities of all the different places and pull together. And one thing that I've been blessed with, is like I have a very structured, organized mind. So I was an engineer in undergrad, like very mathematical, very, very pragmatic. And so I started seeing like the different combinations, and I'd go to this very like random embodiment movement class, and I'd say, oh my gosh, here's what Joe Dispenza is missing when he teaches his stuff. And I could see
mm,
these pieces connect. So for me, when you ask me this question, I've actually discerned it down to four big things. Yeah. And so this is for anyone who's listening, who's on their journey. I do believe that when you're on your journey, you need to get all four of these buckets full. And I think what happens is many people, they'll go into one and they'll kind of do all the things there and say, why isn't this working? Or even two, maybe even three. But it isn't until you hit all four buckets and then connect those pieces together, right? To really use them and orchestrate them in a way that it really happens. And so when I orchestrated them internally, I was able to do it. And then that's really what I create for others is the ability to orchestrate these four pieces. So what are those four pieces? The first one is you need to come into peace with your past. So, so many people learn about shadow work, and then they get into their shadows and they learn about their childhood and all of this stuff. But what happens, and I'm sure you've seen this, Ranjan, is they stay there.
yes.
And especially here in Bali, which is a big spiritual community, transformational community headquarters, so many people come here and they just jump from shadow workshop to shadow workshop to shadow workshop, And I say that people tend to fall into what I call TMSW, too much shadow work. They're just in it all the time. So we also know from manifestation that where your attention goes, energy flows. When you're living your life and all your attention is on your past, and your childhood and what happened with mom and dad, or that bully at school, or first girlfriend, boyfriend, and we're all there. Where's all the energy flowing? Holding you there. So you really need to come into a place where do the shadow work, get the depth, but there's actual steps you can take to come into peace with your past. So that really needs to happen. So most people will get stuck in this first category because it's so rich. I remember my own self in my journey would say, oh my God, it's a never ending well. I can just go there all the time and extract more gold. But to really become fully expressed, right? And be in your full self-expression and live life fully lived, you need to come into peace with that. You need to let that actually be, honor it, but you need to come into peace with that. Now, when you come into peace with that, one of the things that holds people back is then what happens? Well, if you have your present self and is entangled with your past, once your past is unentangled, you're in the overwhelming present. Presence is not easy. It's
Yes.
overwhelming, bro, right? You know this is
Yes.
like there's just so much, and it's like we are not equipped from the way we're raised culturally and societally to
Yes.
actually be present. So the second step is to really come into the power of being present. When you control the chaos, now you need to take command. So the little kid who was running the steering wheel and not going anywhere, we finally take that kid and put him in the back seat, and the adult comes into the driver's seat, but they need to learn how to operate this vehicle, right? Where are the brakes? Where's the gas? How do I boundaries and requests? How do I come into my sovereignty? All of these things. What are the borders of me in the world, and how do I navigate and be present so I'm not overwhelmed? So the second step is to really be able to come into that power of your presence and navigate life in that way. The third piece after that is if you learn all this and you can come into to handle the extremeness of the present and operate that vehicle and you start going somewhere, well, you need to know how to navigate somewhere. And this is where the quantum manifestation, all of these pieces, the inner wisdom, connecting into the archetypal energies of the sage, all of that comes in because now you can actually take all of this somewhere. So those three pieces all need to be present. And then the piece that seems to be missing for a lot of people, which is really exploding really fast through the world right now and is so much more available than even, say, 3, 4 years ago, is the emotional mastery and embodiment piece. Because as you go through these three steps, you're going to be hitting all of this turbulence, and turbulence will be emotions, the emotions that keep us in the same patterns that we want to be in. And so when you can actually re-relate to our emotions, for example, shame. Shame has been an emotion that I've avoided for 30 plus years because I just thought it was just terrible to feel shame. Now it's my favorite emotion because I have a new relationship to shame. Shame I love because it brings me back to integrity in my life. And so whenever I feel shame, I get excited. Most people, I've worked with people who, working with me, they felt shame for the first time in their lives. They just never even knew what it felt like. And so this piece of the emotional mastery is really important. And within all of this is the key to unlocking our worthiness. Because when we can feel worthy to move on from our past, to be in the overwhelming present and know that we can handle it, and to be worthy of going to the place we want to create, the $1 million business, the relationship, the lifestyle, the kids, whatever it might be that we want to create. And we feel that worthiness, and we feel the worthiness to be in all of our emotions and untie the patterns we have. When all of those can be complete, that's the opening to worthiness. And when we're in worthiness, that's when we receive that permission to be fully expressed, to come into our true authentic self, and nothing can hold us back. That's what being fully lived is all about.
Absolutely true. Just half an hour ago, before our conversation, I was working on this, and I had some insights of, some part of my identity. I was working on myself, my past, and healing my past in certain areas. And Jaymin, I suddenly woke up to something that a part of my identity had been stuck in 1998 when something happened, and I took that as a reality of who I am, but that was an incident, and I made it my identity, and I started shaping my future from that identity which I created and I projected, forgetting that it's me who's projecting this identity, it's me who's protecting that identity, and it's me who is allowing that identity to shape my time and my decisions and my choices and my future.
Sweet.
And yeah, I mean, that's how I just got, we are all stuck in different identities in different aspects of life, forgetting that there is something which is connecting all these things, and that's who we are.
Yeah,
And once we wake up to that realization, I think we get back in the driver's seat, and we wake up to the fact that we are far, far powerful, and we take the power back, and we take our sense of worth back from the identity to who we are in reality.
absolutely.
The
And
ones, yeah.
the interesting thing about all this, and I'm curious how your experience was, because I find it's very hard to just sit and do on our own. What I find is that we as human beings are creatures that are seeking permission, and this is even, I say I always work with a minimum of two coaches at a time because it's the permission I get from them to actually take the step that enables me to grow in a way that
Mm,
it's hard for me to sit down and even though I know all of the steps to coach myself through the things, it's like we all need to be that hand for the other person and receive the permission. And we're all permission creating machines. And so every action we take, every way that we live life creates permission for others to also say, wow, if you're doing that, I can do that. Right. And the more of us who are doing this, the more permission is created in the world for more people to step into even more of their own being, their authentic, true being.
yes. Jaymin, finally, I would love to know the experience after the ultimate experience, and how is the experience been, and what's what comes to your mind, and what's been your experience after the event, the ultimate experience, India.
Absolutely. So, this experience is just so beautiful. I think the number one thing that I am taking from that has been really resounding has been the ability to love and receive love in even more of a direct, open way. Like I'm very much the type of person that says, I love you, hugs everyone, like I love that, but there's even more of that. It's hard to put a name to, but it just feels like it's flowing even more. And then also the ability to acknowledge others and be acknowledged. And so, in so many ways, when people would acknowledge me for something, I just kind of say, yeah, yeah, yeah. And now I literally say, thank you for that acknowledgement. And then I seek to acknowledge others and just say, I see you in that, or, I'm witnessing you in what you're doing, and just encouraging others. So that ability to love and receive love, and then to acknowledge and receive acknowledgement has beautifully expanded. And then, of course, just the connections of all the community, where there's just so much activity on Facebook, and I can see all of us just liking and supporting each other's posts and comments and all this sort of stuff. And it's just like there's this real like interest and community in each other, and like what are we all doing, and we seeing familiar faces, and we're encouraging all of the things that are happening. So it feels like this love bomb that's just like kind of like taking its time to continue to expand, and even as we come back to our homes around the world, and even back, like I just got off a call with somebody this morning who's from the ultimate experience, and we just kind of had a catch-up call. And so it still feels like on the weekly I'm talking to two or three more people, we're connecting on Facebook, we're sending some messages, some voice notes. So there just feels this like kind of family is like not just at the event but afterwards. It's like a really long, expansive, been a month, I think, and still there's a lot of like immediate connection. It's like if I had opportunity to see them tomorrow, I know we just drop in and have like a 3 hour lunch talking about life and feeling really comfortable. So those are the three big things for me.
Thank you so much, Jaymin. Jaymin, there is something I would like to share, and it's about you. It's about me, and it's about you. You
Mm.
know, yes, we connected much before the experience. You messaged me and you offered me your help, and then I asked you to connect with my team and create some videos and to help us promote more of the experience. And you did that, I think, with Saloni.
Yeah.
You created a video. Thank you so much for that. Uh, there is something strange that I experienced with you, Jevin. And I think this is the first time I'm actually revealing this to anybody, including you. And
Mm.
when I looked at you in person at the experience, there was some strange feeling that I experienced, and I was being drawn towards you, towards your energy, and at the same time, there was something repelling. There was something. There was something strange kind of thing every time I looked at you. I knew that there's something drawing me positively. At the same time, there's something repelling me, something that was stopping me, preventing me from being more expressive, or being more connected with you, actually. And uh, even I remember exactly the moment when I had this sudden thought when I and Venu were sitting in the lobby of the hotel when you entered after the event, you entered the lobby and I saw you. Although I smiled at you, I still remember the smile was artificial. It wasn't coming, and I faked it. And uh, I was not understanding what was happening, why I was not being that fluid in my being with you, and what was, and I realized that it was my judgmental thinking, some judgments that I was manufacturing then and there and creating and then projecting on you. And on the one side, I knew for sure that there is something connecting also, which is happening, which because that is what was drawing me towards you. At the same time, something was stopping me. Firstly, I'm very sorry for the judgments that I created and manufactured, and I'm very sorry for that. And I also would take time to forgive myself to be in this process of that. But I now realize that sometimes our judgments are telling us, actually giving us the direction that here is something that is missing. Here's something that you must look towards. And here's something that you need in the moment. Or here's the gap that actually you need to work on. And that experience has lived with me. And every time I would reflect, whenever I would go out and have these experiences, I would come back. I sit with them and reflect on who was I being, and what was the barrier, what was stopping me, because I couldn't have formed any judgment because I didn't have any detailed information. So what I was doing was projecting my judgments onto you, and which were reflecting back to me, and then were becoming my psychological barrier to actually connect with you. And on the other side, out of my 25 years of experience, what I realize is these psychological barriers actually serve the purpose of telling us there is something significant which you need to actualize some part of your journey. And this is exactly where some healing is needed or healing is required. And that helped me, my 25 years of journey helped me to find out, oh yes, I think there is something which needs healing. There
Mm.
is, because I have openly told many people that I was always about accomplishments, achievements, and these external things. And for me, even if I remember, meditation was also like an exercise. It was it was like, okay, how many hours have I meditated? So today 1 hour, tomorrow I have to expand it to 1.5. So it was like a target, a goal-oriented kind of thing, an activity. It's only very recently I woke up to the fact that it's about 3 4 years ago I woke up to the fact that I'm missing the emotional part, the emotional connect, the expression. I didn't even know how to express my love. I didn't know how to even sense somebody's love towards me. And I was disconnected somewhere in my heart. And I think once that has started opening up, once that I'm feeling that, once that is happening in my life, and I'll tell that this has happened because of the Being movement. This has happened because of the love that Steve Harrison kept pouring on me. This is because of the Ultimate Coach experience. This is because of what I experienced with my mother during my mother's death, and the after effect of that on my relationships, my awakening in my heart, my connections, and my vulnerability, my all the things, my creation that I'm creating. And thank you so much for playing a role in this, Jamin. Thank you so much, because I see that everything happens for a purpose and everything has a meaning. And if it hasn't, then we are the ones who have to make the meaning out of
Yeah.
what happened. And
Mm.
I made a beautiful meaning of how we met. And I remember those moments, and they have helped me grow. They have helped me evolve, and they're still helping me. actualize who I am and my real potential, for being the expression of my true self, my authentic self.
Thank you, brother. I'm so touched that you shared that with me. And I just want to acknowledge the vulnerability that that takes, and just the seeing that emotional embodiment in you to share that, and I can also share in that, I felt like some disconnect and wanting more closeness, and it really was the moment that and so I had my own judgments of like, oh, I don't know if this is a person I can connect with in the way that I want to connect with, and then when I saw you on stage and you shared your story, you brought up your dad and your kids, and I was just streams of tears. To me, that was the most heartfelt moment of the entire thing. And I came up to you after and just gave you some big hug and
Yes.
said thank you. And that was for me the big moment where I was able to see your soul, and I was able to see your being. And it wasn't, the organizer or the whatever, all of these things. It was just you. And that's when I fell in love. And I can remember that moment of just wow, so many beautiful tears of the vulnerability and embodiment that you displayed. So I want to thank you for that as well, because that's going to stay with me for a long time.
Thank you so much, Jaymin. Thank you for your presence here. Thank you for sharing your experience. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for sharing your message. Thank you for sharing your learnings. And thank you for sharing your being. This
Mm.
was really, really powerful and really amazing. I loved every bit of this conversation. I learned and I grew.
Mm. Thank you, Ranjan.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, brother.